Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Team Genius from upstate New York. Power of Sound out of Schenectady, New York, coming at you today. Um, not not really doing a video on playing the system, this or that, or a walkthrough or anything like that, because well, I got plenty of videos on the walkthrough and the setup, and yeah. Um, I'm more or less doing this video because, well, the fact of reality is nobody in the car audio community knows everything. There is no such thing as a professional. Um, the second you come out and you mention I've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 plus years, you've literally discredited yourself on what you say because um, I've personally, as well as other people that I've talked to, know people who've literally made a living doing this stuff, and guess what? They still screw up. No matter how long you've been in the community and or field, or however you want to put it, no matter how long you've been doing it, we all make mistakes. You don't learn without making a mistake. With that being said, I actually made a little bit of a list here on different things I wanted to talk about. Was gonna do another system walkthrough, but kind of raining a little bit, so I'm not gonna do that. Pretty much just want to cover what I know and some different things on amps, wiring, boxes, fuses, subs, and decks. Um, you're probably hearing the traffic in the background, which my apology about that. I'm actually in a store parking lot. I can get away with it now because I'm not really planning on turning the stereo on. But neither here or there. Amps wise, honestly, I it's not tiring. It just gets very boring to keep reading the same things, comments for people on Facebook stating amps crap, this and that. The amp is only as good, or I'm just gonna jump right to the facts of all of it, or as much of it that I know of. I mean, nobody knows everything on everything. There's always something that somebody's missing or doesn't know. It's a never stop learning curve, just with life. You come into the world living, or you come into the world learning, and you go out of the world learning. You learn something every single day. But back to this now. Amps wise, rather it's Chinese, Korean, or Brazil. Korean amps, they're all the same. They're all the exact same PCB. However, where the catch comes into play, the layout of the PCB varies per company. Yes, they are all the same PCB. However, um, the layout of the amps of the amps PCB is different. Now, two right off the bat that I noticed right away is like DC Audio, for example, and Salt, for example. You have your 12K Salt, which does over 21,000 watts. I've seen it burping, doing over 32,000 watts around neck of the woods. I'm not 100% positive on the exact number, but that's burping. Um, that's not daily numbers. Either or, I've seen people, or I've had people tell me that the Salt 12K is the exact same thing as the DC Pitbull. 100% correct. It is the exact same thing. Korean board, same exact board. However, the PCB layout is not the same. It's a different layout. And anybody can disagree with it if they want. You're open and you're fully entitled to your opinion, and I respect it. However, there's a difference between an opinion and fact. Opinions can be wrong. That's the perk of an opinion. An opinion, you can be wrong. Fact is, it's fact. It's the truth. You're not going to get around it. And if you actually take and look at the PCB of the DC Audio Pitbull and the Salt 12K, yes, they are 100% the same board, but different PCBs. Meaning the PCB layout is different. So overall, not the same amp. They are set up differently. Yes, I do smoke. You can't handle that? Sorry, don't know what to tell you. I also got one of my Red Bulls here. We all have our thing in life. These are my two main things: having my cigarettes, and on my days off from work, having my Red Bulls. It's my treat from being off from work. But either or, going back to it, And no, I'm just not picking DC Audio because I run a DC 10K, and no, I'm not picking Salt because of Sundown or anything like that at all. I will tell you straightforward, Sundown amps are badass. They are beasts. Hands down, I will not deny that. But my opinion when it comes to Sundown, which I said my opinion, you're paying for the name, not the product. The reason why I say that, here's an example of it. You have all these different brands of Korean amps. They all are doing the same thing. However, the prices vary. Why? Because of the name. That's it. You remove the name, you have the same thing every other company out there is doing with Korean amps. Which this brings in the case of Terra amps. Terra amps, they're not Korean. They're Brazilian amps. They are very good amps if they're used properly. I actually until I ran into my DC 10K, I ran the Terra amps base 12K. Absolute monster amp. By far is, till my DC 10K, by far the strongest amp I've ever ran. But here's the kicker. I ran the Terra amps base 12K at 0.5 ohm. It's a 1 ohm rated amp. I beat the dickens out of it for about 2-3 months roughly before it finally gave in. Beautiful voltage on it, and it finally gave in. Whatever, my fault. I ran it lower than it was rated for. However, I will give it credit though. Somebody from Terra Amps USA did reach out to me and offer to replace the PCB for free. Heck of an offer for an amp that goes for over $1,000. To be honest, did I jump at it and get my amp fixed for free? No, I didn't. Reason being, I did not buy the amp from Terra Amps. I bought the amp brand spanking new in box from my dealer, which not his fault at all, completely my fault because I ran the amp lower than I was supposed to. It is a 1 ohm rated amp and I ran it at 0.5 ohm, so 100% my fault. But the reason why I didn't send the amp to Terra Amps to get it fixed for free is because, one, didn't have a warranty through Terra Amps, never bought it from Terra Amps. I didn't want to go through all that of shipping the amp out and then telling them that's not under warranty, going through all that of trying to figure it out. So I just went from the Terra Amps to the DC Audio 10K. Now on the end of the DC Audio 10K, I know Korean amps, they are built far stronger. And my opinion, though I have zero personal experience running a Korean amp at 0.5 ohm, so I can't speak on that, but I know Korean amps are built better than Brazilian amps. I know that 100%. So I'm presuming that Korean amps handle 0.5 ohm load a lot better, meaning 0.5 ohms a lot better, as long as the voltage is there to back it up. So that being said, right there is a slight clue on a couple of things I'm thinking about with my current ride and my current system, but I'm gonna leave that there because I'm not trying to give up anything that I'm thinking of, because reality of it is I've never once had a system and not kept on making it stronger and going bigger. So I'm leaving that there. Keep you all thinking on that one. But still going on the end of amps, especially on the end of Sundown. Well, just Sundown in general. Let me clear that up really quick, because a lot of people say I'm a Sundown hater or this and that. I don't hate Sundown. I do not hate Sundown at all. Believe it or not, every one of their subs, there's things I absolutely love about their subs. There's things I hate about their subs. That goes for every brand. I don't favor any specific brand. I like and dislike every brand for different reasons. Mainly on the end of Sundown is their cost for what you get. And in the case of the subwoofers, they're doing nothing at all that any other company has not already done. Sundown is doing nothing different. The only thing they're doing is charging you more money. That's it. And here's an example. On their subwoofers, they have made in the USA the sticker on their subwoofers. That's not true. I've actually seen unboxing videos of Sundown subwoofers. Here's the kicker. The box says right on the box, made in China. They're using China parts. They all companies outsource. You're getting your voice coil. They're getting their voice coils, etc., 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 from China. Yeah, they may take they may take and build the motors in house. But here's the kicker: there's a difference between making something and assembling it. If you're assembling it, you did not make it. You're getting the parts to assemble it. When you're making something, it never existed, so you made it. So for Sundown to say made in America or made in USA, they would have to make that sub in USA. Which, here's the kicker though with the United States. I forgot exactly what the bill, the code on the bill is, but I believe, don't take me up my word for it. I believe it's like either 70 or 80. I forgot the percentage exactly, where only so much of it has to be made in the USA for it to be legally labeled as made in USA. Now here's where Sundown has here's where the little catch-22 comes into play. With Sundown, yeah, that sticker can say made in the USA on the basket, the basket. Now, though, where the kicker comes into play on that is that basket is over half of that actual subwoofer. So yeah, they can technically say made in the USA for the basket, not the whole sub. As for the voice coil, the surround, the motor, stuff like that, it's not USA. You're getting a China built voice coil. You're getting China built motor, because as far as I'm aware of, they don't build their motors. Their motors are built for them and they get shipped to them. So realistically, the only American part that you're buying from Sundown is the basket. That's it. Sundown does no different than any other company does. They outsource, get their parts in, and then they assemble the product and then they put it out. So the sticker on the basket saying made in USA, that I can understand. That, yes. But to say that that the subs are made in USA, that's a complete lie. That's not true at all. And if you think about it, if you're not so fast to talk about it and you actually do the research on it and look at other top end brands like CT, DC Audio, there's a bunch of other top end brands. I can't remember all off the top of my head. But if you look at their speaker, their subs, and etc., etc., they're all already doing the same thing that Sundown's doing, and they've been doing it before Sundown even did it, and they're cheaper. On the end of the voice coils, 3-inch voice coil, 2.5-inch voice coil, 3.5-inch voice coil. Those are small voice coils. You want to talk a voice coil? Let's get a nice 4-inch voice coil. And I mean, you get a nice 4-inch voice coil that can do 3,000, 3,500 watts, even 4,000 watts RMS. You got a sub that can put in some work, and that will do some stuff. But that goes for any brand. It does not matter what the brand is. Now, 100%. In person, I've seen some pretty high-end Sundown builds. Some of them sounded great. Some of them sounded like crap. It all depends what the build is meant for. But overall, me personally, I've never bought Sundown and I've never owned Sundown specifically because of the name. I am not spending $1,200, $1,300 or even $1,500 on a damn subwoofer because there's a name on it. When realistically, I can get the same thing for like $1,000 from, let's say, DC Audio. Let's just say that. That's the first thing that pops off the top of my head. Which fact of it is, DC Audio has actually been in the game longer than Sundown and has a far stronger reputation. But neither here there. I've made a lot of this video about Sundown, which not at all how I wanted to go, but that just came into the amps end of it. Well, amps and subwoofer end of it. But just to clear that up, I don't dislike Sundown at all. I will tell you straightforward, if Sundown actually took and brought their prices down to a more respectable level for what you're getting, because what you're getting is no different than what any other top-end company is doing. So if they were to actually bring their stuff down to a more respectable level like the rest of the companies out there for your higher end, I would absolutely buy Sundown in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I would love to buy it because, to be honest with you, their surrounds on their subs are sexy. I love them. That and the sheer size of their motors, I think it's pretty sick. Yeah, so that's pretty much that on the end of Sundown and DC and stuff like that with me. But here we go on the that's it for amps wise that I could think of. As for the wiring, that can really go anywhere. As for wiring, the very first thing I could think of is no matter what, you always want the shortest runs possible. The shorter the run is, the more efficient the power transfer, the more efficient the power transfer, and the faster it's going to be. And fact of the matter is, the faster you can get that juice to that amp, the better. No different than running your audio, no different than running your power cable and or cables from your front of your vehicle to the back of it, or however you charge it. You want the run to be as short as it absolutely possibly can. The faster that you can get that juice to that battery from that alternator, the better. Always, no matter what, always, when it comes to your electrical, do not cheap out. I don't know why, like, I've been doing this stuff, I'm not even gonna say how long I've been doing it, but I've been doing it for a while, and the easiest thing to know on the end of it all is really electrical. At least that's my opinion. And the biggest mistake that people who don't know too much about it and are just coming into it or are growing their stereo system or whatever, I'm sorry, but I can't comprehend why this mistake is still being made by so many people, and I see it non-stop in groups. They're trying to run higher powered equipment on electrical that's not up to par. Your electrical is the most important part of the entire system. Who cares about the system if your electrical isn't there? Point blank. You always want more electrical than you need. Why? Because then you're not going to starve the system. You're not going to drop your voltage like crazy, causing it to clip, causing it to heat up. You're not going to be blowing your stuff. But a lot of that also has to come in, has to do with tuning stuff, etc., etc. Which I'm not going to get too deep into every little thing that I know of, because the video is going to be stupid long and we're already 17 minutes into it. But neither here or there. You always want more electrical than you need. Always get a bigger alternator than you think you need, because here's the thing. 9 times out of 10, down the line, you're going to be growing your system, buying better amp, buying better speakers, buying better, etc., etc. So you always want more than you need. So say you're doing a system and you only need a 200 amp alternator. Write that in there. Automatically go after a 250 or 3. Why? Because you're automatically saving yourself money. You buy that 253 now, you ain't got to upgrade the alternator down the line, spending more money, and still have that 253 for when you do your upgrade. Hang on one moment. Now, being that I covered the alternator thing really quick, coming back to the wiring. You have your wiring out there, your CCA, etc., etc. CCA wire is garbage. I believe, I'm almost positive it's copper clad aluminum. It's garbage. It does not carry current well or as good as OFC, which is oxygen-free copper. Oxygen-free copper is the best wire or cable that you can get, and yes, you're going to pay more for it. There's a reason why you're paying for it. You pay more for the quality. That also, I can already hear people saying, well, you were talking about Sundown, so that's what you're paying for, is the quality. Before we even get that far, you get the same quality from other companies and you're not getting charged as much, so just stop. But bouncing back to wiring really quick. Say you only need let's say 4-gauge wiring. Run 2-gauge. I mean, the thicker the wire, the better it's going to do. And well, yeah, always push what you need a little bit more. Trust me, it's going to benefit you. It's done it for me a lot. as I said, get OFC, oxygen-free copper. If you're doing zero gauge, do oversized zero gauge. That's all I run is oversized zero gauge, and it's all OFC, oxygen-free copper. The biggest thing when it comes to a system, do not cheap out on your electrical. And I don't know, I already know me saying this, and there's plenty of other YouTubers out there that are in the community that say the same thing. Don't cheap out on your electrical, but yet people still do it. It's baffling. But me personally, if I'm doing a system, I don't care if I'm buying a cheap amp and cheap subs. I'm not going to cheap out on electrical. Rather it's cheap equipment or not, you still want to feed it properly and keep it happy, meaning plenty of juice. And gonna touch base on it really quickly. Fuses. Yes, I run no fuses. My decision. It is whatever. Fuses are an option, not a requirement, and I can't tell you how many people have said, I'll wait to see a post of you showing your video, your vehicle, your car burnt up, this and that. Will you please cut it? You have vehicles coming from factory, people who have certifications in wiring and doing all this other crap, even electricians that do all this stuff in houses, etc., etc., etc. Rather you run a fuse or not, things could still go wrong. I can literally drop links to tons of videos from YouTube itself of vehicles that are fused up like crazy, and you know what? They're burning to the ground on the video. But I mean, it is what it is. Vehicles from factory burn up. It's electrical. It's whatever. The only thing the fuse does is protect the line that it's on. Now here's the kicker. Yeah, it protects the line that it's on, which that line can go to equipment. Okay, well here's the kicker on it. Is also having a fuse is also another added point of failure. Everything that's added to a system is an added point of failure. That's a fact. Me, I choose to run no fuses because, well, I like my systems as simple as possible. I also test out everything I do before I do it. So, I mean, and sorry about this traffic, people. Close my window for a moment. I've actually got to turn on my AC so I don't fry in my car. I have also heard about people saying, well, you get a short this or that. Okay, well, I'm gonna eliminate that. How I take and I do it, when I take and I disconnect my power cables, when I disconnect my power cables or even my ground cables, I do one at a time. And every one that I do, when I disconnect it, I wrap the end of it in electrical tape, so it covering the end. So at that point in time, whether it's the ground or power, it could touch anything. It's not gonna short anything out at all. It's not gonna cause no problems. Why do I do that? Simple, because I have no fuse on the line, so if anything was to happen, we got no problems. But in just my rule of thumb, common sense, you start pulling cables, you have a bare end, rather you have a fuse on the line or not, you should be wrapping that end. Common sense. It's your investment to your system. Why not do every little thing you can to protect it? Which I can hear people saying now, yeah, why not just buy a cheap fuse and do that and fix it, or protect your investment. I can understand that. Again, I want the points of failure to be at the minimum as possible with my system. Fuses are not a requirement, they're an option. Now for people who are new to the field, I highly, highly, highly push them, run fuses. Because we all know, especially being new to the field, or new to car audio, you're going to end up crossing wires or doing something. We've all been there. We've all done it. If you say you've never done it, just stop talking. You've already shown you don't know what you're talking about. We've all done it. I've done it. When I first started out, I can't say how many times I would short a wire out or whatever. And yes, when I first started out, I ran fuses like crazy. But I get so anal about double checking things as I'm doing it, and as I'm doing it, and then after it's done, I spend probably about a good hour overlooking my work after I'm doing it, as I'm looking at it, or as I'm going over everything as I'm doing it. It's kind of confusing how I just said that, but that's pretty much that on the wiring end of the thing. The biggest thing that I wanted to say on the wiring end is the whole thing of shortest runs possible. And that's pretty much that on the wiring. I can't really think of anything. Boxes wise, the biggest one, kind of, I think, your box makes or breaks your system 100%, no way around it. It's not the amp, it's not the subs, it's not the power. Your box makes or breaks the system. As for people talking about boxes built within spec, this and that, no such thing as a box in spec. No such thing. Why? You have impedance. The box flexes when your base is going, which what happens, you're knocking the box out of specs. So say you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're doing a single, double, 4, 6, 12, doesn't matter how big the enclosure is. You build the box, you gotta be dead on with your numbers across the boards, everything for your enclosure, for your cubic foot, to your tuning, everything. Here's the kicker. Second you turn that base on, you've knocked that box out of spec. You're no longer in spec. But the ultimate goal is to be as close to those specs as you possibly can, just like with impedance. You want to have the lowest impedance possible. And I've heard people come out and say, the higher your impedance is, the better your efficiency is. No, that's not at all true. The higher your impedance is, the less efficient your box is, which means the poorer the quality of it overall, and the worse it's doing. The lower your efficiency is, or the lower your impedance is, which is also known as box rise, the lower your impedance is, the more efficient your box is, and the better overall it's going to give you your results. By that, I'm saying your subs are doing what they're doing. Your box is giving you your result to your sounding of your system. So if you have your box tuned stupid low, like 25, 30 hertz, that's where you're going to be playing around. Well, I mean, you're going to have a range. No matter what your box is tuned at, you're going to have a range of how low you can go from that and how high you can go from that before it starts sounding ugh. But that's pretty much that on the end of boxes. Is your box makes or breaks your system. You could have, literally, you can go out and buy, and this is actually kind of sort of speaking up about Sundown, because they're the well-known brand out there. So isn't DC Audio, but neither here nor there. You can go out and buy $2,600 in Sundown subwoofers. Beautiful subs. Not gonna lie, beautiful subs. I'm sure a lot of you know subs I'm talking about. Throw them in a real crap enclosure that's not even close to spec or whatever. Turn them on. Crank that system. Have those subs slamming. Guess what? System sounds like garbage. Why? Because the box. 100% the box. You could have a crap box, no matter how well you're able to tune an amp or a deck, it ain't gonna change it. You can't make up for a crap box. Now you take those same exact $2,600 in subs, put them in a box that's as close to specs as possible, or if not dead on, because obviously, like I said, you're gonna knock that box out of specs when the bass hits. Get the tuning there, set up the amp correctly, set up the deck correctly, get everything there. Obviously, make sure your electrical's up to par. Come on, you're pushing that kind of power, your electrical better be up to par, but neither here nor there. You put $2,600 worth of subs in a box that is tuned properly according to what you're gonna play for, what you want to do, and that's spec properly. You crank that system, man, is it gonna hit, and it's gonna sound good, point blank. And that's me speaking on Sundown. Like I said, I don't hate Sundown, don't hate them at all, love a lot of their products, just hate the pricing because of a stupid name. You erase that name, what do you have? Nothing more than anybody else out there. Yeah, that's pretty much that on the boxes and subs. And like, already really covered that. I mean, subs, all the companies do the same damn thing. They all outsource. Sundown does, DC does, they all do. And really, that's it. I mean, subs are pretty much straightforward. Oh, for people saying with kind of gonna come back around, but again, this falls back to DC Audio and all other brands out there, DC Audio, Sundown, etc., etc., etc. people saying that they're doing 6,000, 7,000 watts on sub rated for 3,500 watts, saying that they're doing 5,000, or saying that they're doing 7,000 watts daily on it. Point blank, you're full of crap. Your RMS rating is daily power. Daily power is RMS. Although Sundown doesn't have no max power on their subs, okay, yeah, you could push stupid power to a sub, but you're not doing it daily. There's no way you're not doing it daily. And I've had tons of people tell me, I got 212s, and I'm putting 9,000 watts to them daily. No, you're not. Sorry, not happening. Funny, they want to argue it, but every time I'm like, let's see a video. Let's see a video of you putting those subs, putting two subs that are like rated at 3,000 watts or even 2,500 watts. Let's see you put 2 of those subs on 7,000 to 8,000 watts for, let's say, 10 minutes straight, non-stop. Not gonna happen. You're gonna fry the damn sub. That's literally just how it is. And one thing that I noticed that has been done quite a bit lately, especially on the Sundown unofficial page, is their free airing subs put nice power to them. Free airing don't mean a damn thing. Free airing is not installed in a vehicle and having it run, dealing with impedance, which makes the amp overall work harder, which makes the sub take more abuse from the amp. So everything's all working harder. You are not taking a 2,500 watt or a 3,000 watt subwoofer, 2 of them, might I add, and running 7,000 to 8,000 watts to them non-stop. I'm talking about 2. I'm not talking about 4, 6, 8, etc., etc., etc. I'm talking about 2. You're not taking 2 of them and running 7,000 to 8,000 watts to them non-stop all day long. Not going to happen. You're going to fry the subs. That goes for any brand, not just Sundown. I mean, both of my subs, for example, which, I mean, you all already know my subs. My subs are rated 3,000 watts RMS a piece, 6,000 watts max a piece. I'm not doing no 6,000 or 7,000 watts daily. No. Me, I'm doing probably maybe 3,500, 4,000 watts. Because realistically, when I'm playing, my deck is on 18 to 22 at the most, and my bass knob is halfway, a little bit under half daily, which that's way more than enough for me driving. But when I actually take and I crank the system and go full tilt and everything, I'm not dragging that out daily. You nuts! I'm gonna end up burning my subs up. What I take and what I do is, yeah, you could put that crazy wattage to subs that are able to take it, but it's not gonna take it daily. At that point in time, it comes to knowing what your system can and can't do, knowing what your system can and can't do, and knowing how far you can push it. Meaning, when you're putting that power to those speakers, and as long as you're not clipping and your voltage is there or your electrical is there and you're pushing them, when your system's going and going and going and you're bassing out and everything, at that point in time, you got to be listening to what the system is doing. Meaning, as you're breathing, it's a little trick that especially noobs to the community don't do. It's a little trick that I do, and a lot of people that have higher end systems that really push things hard do. Now, when things are going, especially when you're giving demos, you take in, when you're breathing, I don't breathe out of my mouth, I breathe out of my nose. Reason being is because when I'm breathing, I'm actually smelling for coil smell, meaning the coil warming up. And that's telling me where my subs are at and how much farther I can push them and how hard I can push them for that time frame. A little bit of a coil smell, not bad. It's just telling you your subs are getting warm. You can still push them farther. Decent coil smell, all right. It's time to start. Okay, I can go a little bit farther, but I don't want to go crazy. Heavy coil smell, which you're borderline at that point in time, your subs is giving you the magic smoke. Borderline coil smell, you better turn that dial it back a bit, or turn that off and let the subs cool down. Which in reality, turning the subs off when they're that warm, not really a good idea. It's better just to turn them down, because turning them down, yeah, they still got power going to them. However, the sub flexing in and out with the excursion actually helps that sub cool down, because you're moving the air. You're pushing the hot air out and you're bringing the cooler air in. So believe it or not, what I typically like to do is when I push my subs, I tell you point blank, when I give demos, I typically push my subs to where I start to get decent coil smell. But when I do it, I usually do it with my windows with my window and or windows open. So when I do it, and the person, when I do it and the smell does happen, the person I'm giving a demo to don't really smell too much. But me, I can smell, because obviously the person that's getting a demo really don't know what the smell for, and unless they're breathing through their nose, they're not going to smell it anyway. Me, I'm breathing through my nose and I know what I'm looking for, so it works out in my benefit. But and also helps me give the best possible demo that I can give, which that's always what I push for. But yeah, that's pretty much that on the subs end. I mean, and on the end of decks, on the end of decks, a lot of people will take and push a deck to its clipping point and then back off, and they go to tune an amp. And it's, yes, a lot of this has to, some of this has to do with my end of stuff when it comes to my DC10K and no clipping, this and that. My deck is set to clip at, or my deck clips at volume 34, I believe. It's either 33 or 34. I never turn my deck higher than 23. The loudness on my deck is turned on. That being said, I can't clip, my deck won't clip even if I wanted it to, or even if I tried it to. Well, if I went past 33, 34, whatever, then yeah, it's gonna clip. Because that's the clipping point of it, point blank. The reason why my DC10K does not clip point blank, as I said, my deck clips at 33, 34. I never turn my deck past 23. Don't have a reason to, because the musical end is quite loud. I mean, video never does it justice. So my musical end, when you're in a car, it feels like somebody's yelling in your ear, point blank. But my deck is given unclipped, crystal clear signal through the RCAs to my amp. Therefore, I'm able to crank my amp, even max it out with no clipping, which I've already done a video like 12, 13 days ago with my amp on my oscilloscope proving it doesn't clip. If your amp, or if the deck starts to clip, it's gonna send that clip signal to the amp, and that amp's gonna clip. There's no way around it. As long as that deck isn't clipping, you can push that amp. Been there, done it. I already tested this out on my system. Because in reality of it, and I've also heard people, and I've also had people tell me amps don't create bass. The amps don't create bass. The deck does. Let me break this down really fast. To create something, you're making something that didn't exist beforehand. 100% the deck creates the bass. 100% the deck creates the bass. The deck then sends that signal to the amp. 100%, not going to argue that. The amp then takes that signal and amplifies it. Meaning, what does amplify mean? You make it more. So that amp is taking that signal and creating, by amplifying, creating a higher signal. It's increasing it. It's creating a bigger signal, which then that signal goes through, gets converted from DC to AC, etc., through the amp. Then gets put out of the amp to your subs, which then gives you your music or your bass. On a musical end, same thing. But yes, amps to an extent create bass. They amplify. To amplify, you're making more than what was there. The amp gets this, the deck gives the signal to the amp. The amp is creating more of a signal. There wasn't that much signal before the amp came into play. I literally explained this to somebody and they couldn't grasp that. No matter how I worded it. To create is to make more. That make more of something that wasn't already there. If you're taking a signal from the deck, putting it into the amp, and the amp is increasing, you're creating more. So yes, to an extent, an amp creates bass. If that wasn't the case, what are we all doing buying amps? Disconnect the amp and just wire your damn subs right to your deck. What do we need the amp for? Easy. We need the amp to create more amplify. We need the amp to create more signal to push our speakers, our subs. What's so complicated about it? But yeah, that's really that. I mean, I covered a lot on the deck. I covered mainly everything on the deck end. Oh, and as for people having trouble tuning amps, etc., etc., your subsonic, which is literally your high pass filter, and your low pass is your low pass filter, obviously. You set those after you set your gain on your amp. That's literally how that works, because that goes according to your subs and your box and how your system want the system to overall sound. Which you always tinker with that. You don't just set it and forget it. You don't just set it and forget once and forget it. You always play around with it. Like with my amp, I'm still doing it to this day, and I've had my amp for, I want to say, probably about a month or two now. Once every week, I'll spend about a half hour tweaking different settings on the low pass and the subsonic. On the end of setting your gain, everything. Okay, listen. You can do it by the multimeter, which is dirt cheap. However, there's math involved. Me, I don't get paid. I don't get. To me, I'm too lazy to do all the math that's involved. So there's a very easy way to do it, and really, this day and age with how cheap the stuff really is, there's really no excuse for anything on this. If you can afford to buy an amp itself, which costs $100 to a couple $100, and you can buy subs and all this, and a deck and all this other crap, why haven't you already bought an O-scope? Like, I mean, really, you can get them. You can get very decent ones right on Amazon, etc., etc. $70, $80. Like the one I got only cost me, I think it was like $35, and it works beautiful. So how is it that you're buying subs, spending hundreds on subs, spending hundreds on amps, or 100 on subs and 100 on amps, or an amp, and then the money for the wiring, and then the extra battery and the deck, and you ain't bought an O-scope yet? Really? Come on. And I'm not talking down to nobody on this end. You're spending all this money on the system when in total you probably, even on a noob's end, you're spending probably roughly about $700-800 on the system, but yet you haven't bought like a $70 O-scope. Most of us have credit cards. Swipe that credit card. That, or do a leasing thing where you're paying monthly on it, or whatever, or weekly, or however it would work for whatever plan you come up with. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, that's like literally. That's like literally the biggest thing for me is like I don't know how people can't tune amps, because especially with oscilloscopes being so cheap. Now there's a reason why I jumped to the oscilloscope, and I will explain that now really quick before I end this video. Yeah, being this long, I highly doubt people are going to watch all the way through, but whoever does, I insanely greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much appreciated, and you're awesome. The reason why I bought my oscilloscope is I had the SMD DD1. The kicker is with my DC Audio 10K, when I was doing the gain on it, I noticed that the clipping indicator would come on, then go back off, come on, and go on and off in different periods of the gain. I'm like, what? It would confuse the hell out of me. Like, something ain't right here. So at that point in time, I took and I bought the oscilloscope. Funny part about it is, my oscilloscope, I did a video, shows 0 issues. I turned the amp all the way up with no problems at all. Not saying that the oscilloscope, no, not saying that the DD1 that I had has any issues, because I've never had an issue with it. I mean, that DD1 I had used on other amps did the same thing. It's like varies per amps, because my Terra amps, the DD1 never did it. I had an amp, my last amps prior to it, I only had one other amp that did it too. So it was like 2 out of, over the last year, I think I've had like 5 or 6 different amps roughly. And my DC 10K and one other amp, the DD1 did it too. Didn't do $2 one, so I was like, yeah, you know. I was like, then I thought about it. I was like, I spent this money that I spent on the DD1, so, but I don't want to buy an amp, then find out that the DD1 can't do this particular amp. I want to guarantee every single time. Which way do I get that? Oscilloscope. And I really don't feel like spending $70 on an oscilloscope, to be honest. So that's why I went with my $35 one. And it's doing a job. It's doing it. My subs don't get warm. My amp don't get warm. I don't clip. The oscilloscope clearly did its job. But yeah, that's pretty much my list. Like I said, I wanted to do a walkthrough of my system, or do another one, but kind of rings, so I'm not going to do that. Covered amps, wiring, boxes, fuses, subs, and decks. Try to cover a lot of things as much as possible. I mean, some of the basics as much as possible, more extensive basics on my end. Not at all trying to play know-it-all, as I still have things I'm learning as everybody else does. Threw in a couple helpful tips in there for people, especially new people to the community, field, however you want to pronounce it. Some of the tips I put that I threw in can seriously help out newcomers. Can help them out in a lot of ways. Get them a better banging system, and well, save them some money. Because on my end, especially with my system, I will tell you 100%, when something goes wrong with my system, it's not a couple $100 fix. More or less, I'm spending at least $1,000, point blank. At least on the low end, $1,000. So yeah, if I lose my subs, there's over $1,000 right there that I gotta replace. I lose my amp, gotta send it out for the warranty, and then if DC Audio determines that it's not user error, they fix it. If it turns out that it's user error, fine, what's up? I gotta bite the bullet. It's whatever. My problem, my fault. Own up to it, learn from it. Now, how much are they gonna charge me to fix it? Then, providing they don't charge me shipping back and forth. Yeah, and you're talking about a $2,500 amp. It gets expensive very quick. Then, like my alternator, that goes. There's another $700 expense because that's what that alternator cost me, and I got it from one place, excessive amperage, and they're the only company that makes the alternators for my car. Though I did run to another company, I did it, but for what they were going to give me for the cost, I don't trust it because I've never heard of the company. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, very, very expensive. And just like my battery, something goes wrong there, there's a $1,400 expense right there. Yeah, no more couple $100. Talking about $1,000 or more. So yeah, me running fuses and everything, trust me, I make sure my system's up to par. I make sure it's doing what it's got to do. And I make damn sure I'm not an idiot when I work on it. Because I mean, like any of us, for 9 times out of 10, our systems cost more than our vehicle, and I'm not ashamed of saying it. For what my system costs in total, not including my time and labor, I've bought my car 3 times over blindfolded. But yeah, 48 minutes in. This is literally the longest video I've ever made for on any topic. But wanted to cover things, and yeah. Again, if anybody made it this far, you are absolutely awesome. Badass, cool as hell. You're absolutely awesome. And yeah, that's really it. Me, myself, I'm cool with people disagreeing with me. It's fine. I respect it. I respect what you gotta say. As long as you respect what I've gotta say, I have the right to disagree with you. You have the right to disagree with me. It's called an opinion. But here's the kicker. If you come off trying to say that I'm wrong, I'm fine with that. But I'm going to call you on it. Now, at that point in time, I don't want to talk. At that point in time, come with factual proof. Yeah, they mean the same thing, but come with proof, like links, pictures, video, etc., whatever. Don't just talk. That's not how I am. I don't live by talk. I live by reality. I live by fact. So overall, if you're gonna come out and disagree with me, time to have some proof behind that, because I'm gonna call it if I disagree with it. Now, as long as you respect me, I give it in return. I'm not a bad guy at all. Do I care what people online think about me? Not at all. Do you pay my bills? Do you put food on my table? Do you pay for my vehicle? Do you pay for my car or my system? Do you pay for my enjoyment? What are you doing for me in my life for me to care what you think? But yeah, that's specifically for the haters. But at the same time too, I love you haters. I wouldn't have what I have if it wasn't for you guys. You guys give me the drive. But the kicker is, the more the haters hate, gives me the drive. But that drive gives me all the more enjoyment for when I enjoy my own system. So you guys are giving me a lot of stuff to have fun with. But yeah, so 50 minutes in. This is Genius Audio, or Team Genius Audio, coming at you from upstate New York. Power of sound out of Schenectady. For all those who made it this far, you guys are absolutely amazing. I honestly would love to meet up in person with you guys and base out with you and enjoy the systems. But we're out. Later.